PPE charge into your practice? Have you considered how this conversation is going to go with your patients and with your team members? Or maybe you have started to have the conversation and it's not going so well. What we're going to do in this video is we're going to help you have some verbiage cues that you can utilize for your patients and for your team members that is going to be well received by the majority. At the Dental MEP, we use science to teach people skills to you. Do not forget to subscribe to our channel and don't forget to hit the bell so you never miss out.
In another video, we went over how to really set up patient expectations for these new changes to the way that we're practicing and what their interactions with our teams look like. One of these was, what conversations are we having? We talked about setting up that expectation for if there's going to be a PPE charge, having the conversation before they receive the bill.
Yeah.
So make sure, go and check that video out as well to review those other conversations you want to be having. Now, in today's video, we're going to delve deeper in how we structure these conversations. The first thing we want to be aware of is, how will our patient perceive this? Now, the scale goes from a really comfortable, easy conversation, and then it's going to get uncomfortable really fast. So you may have a fellow business owner that realizes during this time what has been required of us for changes, whether it is increases in overhead expenses, decreasing in the way that we can schedule. They understand that these challenges result in changes to what our pricing structure look like. That might be a patient that receives the bill. They get it, they understand, they empathize with you, they know that this is a frustrating time to be in as a business owner. Now, you might get those kind of middle of the road people where they didn't really see the charge coming, they're okay with it, not a big deal. They've also gone to restaurants, seen an extra 4% charge there. They are understanding of what's going on. They're not going to give you a hard time about it. But then you have the patients that want to know, why are they responsible for paying for your PPE?
Mm-hmm. We have to call that out.
We do. And it is a very uncomfortable conversation to be addressed as a team member, to be confronted with this conversation if you haven't practiced what the conversation looks like.
Like Chastity just said, our team members need to be comfortable with that conversation. If you have a patient who is on the other side of the spectrum, we want to be prepared for that because this may be their perception.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way that we're going to feel comfortable with that is if our team feels comfortable with what they're about to say. If they don't believe in what they're saying and the reason behind why we're charging PPE codes, then it's not going to be well received by our patients. So in order for our patient to get that good experience, we have to make sure that our team members also get the good experience. And just like there's a scale when it comes to our patients, there's a scale when it comes to our team members too.
So you may have someone who is more involved in the financial aspect of the practice. So they see the operations of the scheduling and how that is being effective.
It's a no-brainer
with
to
the
them.
extended appointments. It's a no-brainer. They're saying, okay, this completely makes sense in the business realm. That is the hat that they wear in the practice. It's easily justifiable. Now, you could also have a team member who maybe doesn't feel comfortable with having those financial conversations, or they're wondering, well, if we've always worn PPE, why would our patient just now be being charged for PPE? So these are the conversations that we really want to make sure that we're approaching, making sure that we're able to have them confidently with both our teams and our patients, because our team will not be able to convey that message in a comfortable way if they don't feel comfortable with it themselves.
When we're having these conversations with our teams and our patients, they should look the same. Usually we'll have a conversation with our team and we'll talk more of the finances and we'll come up with a different excuse or a reason or belief behind why we're implementing something within the practice. And then what we deliver to our patients is completely different and curated for them. When it comes to the PPE charge, what I'd like to challenge you to do is to create one reason, something that we're delivering to our team members and to our patients. And this is going to fit the majority so that we can all have that well-received communication for the majority of people out there. And in order to do that, we have to touch on the values and the beliefs that exist behind these spectrums and come up with something that is going to be well-received by the majority.
One of the biggest things is we have to make sure that we are able to communicate the value. What happens a lot of times is when we meet about it with our teams, like Christina said, we have one message. And then when we talk to our patients, there's a different message. And that's where we get that complex of feeling like we're selling something to our patients, when in reality, All of our intentions are the same. We want to be able to provide the highest quality of care to our patients in a way that creates a safe environment. Now, we want to make sure that we're identifying and justifying what is this additional expense for. So we want to touch on all of those categories. So it's for quality of care. So it's for extending those appointment lengths, making sure that we have adequate time if we're not able to use the ultrasonic scaler or polish and we want to have that additional time for removing stain or whatever it may be.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also, yes, because we are taking extra time to then be able to have more sterilization processes for the room as well to ensure that safety.
And yes, PPE cost has increased and is going
Mhm.
to continue to increase. That's part of it, of course, but that's not the main reason.
Yeah, a lot of times we forget to communicate the safety aspect to our team because we assume they know, right? They are breaking down the rooms, they are doing the sterilizing. So the part we communicate to our teams is that, well, the cost of PPE has gone up, and so our patients will be receiving this charge because we assume that they already know the safety precautions and the ways that we are adjusting appointments to ensure quality of care. But we don't want to forget about communicating that aspect to them as well, because a lot of our team members really need to hear that and need to understand that, because that's the value in the message that they will be communicating to their patients as well.
There is one difference between the communication with your patients and with your team members, and that's regarding the fee. For our patients, we tell them what the fee is. For our team members, we tell them why the fee is. And that's the only difference. And so we want to make sure that you have a great understanding of why you also have chosen the fee pricing that you have. How did you calculate it? Did you just take what you heard other people were charging? Did you see what insurance was paying? Or did you calculate it for your practice? And what I would highly recommend is calculating it specifically for your practice. And if you calculate it and it's way too high and you adjusted it, be able to deliver that message, because again, that's an authentic message that we want to deliver to our team. What this would look like is if I have decided to add 30 minutes of time to my hygiene appointments, I calculated out what typically 30 minutes of hygiene production looks like on a cost basis. And whether you do that, based off production or however you decide to do it is up to you. But figure out, what does that look like typically for your practice? And then is that the fee that you're going to be charging to your patients? Because that's the amount of time that you needed to ensure their safety, and then all those other factors that Chassie just talked about? Or are you reducing it from there? Be able to have some sort of calculation that you can give to your team members when you say, and the reason that we are charging $20 is ... That's how we come up with the fee. And then asking for feedback, of course. So let's give you a little bit more insight on how to deliver these value add messages to your patients and your team members, and then how you can also continue the conversation around it.
If you've decided as a practice to implement this PPE charge, we really want to start with having the conversation with our team members. A lot of times we forget this part of the process. We let them know what's going to happen, but we haven't had that opportunity to have the open dialogue that's going to let us know how comfortable they feel relaying these messages to their patients and communicating with their patients regarding these changes. So once you come up with the kind of cost of what that PPE charge is, we want to make sure that we have the conversation with our team. We explain to them why it is that we've come across this amount as being what it is that we would implement. And then eliciting their advice, looking for their feedback. Does this seem fair? Is this doable? Is it reasonable? What barriers do you think we would run into if we were to do this? Taking their feedback into consideration, trying not to respond too quickly with justifying why it is that you're doing it, but making sure that you're listening for what their perspective is. That's going to get you light on what their beliefs are and maybe what it is that you need to communicate back to them. If they are concerned with the patient perception, then really delving into the conversation Christina is going to go over with you on how to communicate it to your patients. And lastly, make sure that you ask them how they feel about it. Now, this seems silly to say, how do you feel about it? But the emotional part is something that's going to be conveyed to our patients. So if they feel really uneasy and really unsure, as they're communicating this message to the patients, their body language is going to show it. Their tone of voice is going to change. When the patients say, "Why did I get this charge?" they're going to kind of quiet down and shut down a little bit, and they're not going to feel confident in that explanation. So we want to make sure that when we're asking them how they feel about it, that it's something that they feel okay about, that it seems completely reasonable, that it seems doable, and that they understand why this is a step that's being taken in the practice.
Now, when we take all these different perceptions into place, we've got the scale when it comes to our patients, we've got the scale when it comes to our team members. What I'm going to ask you to do is, much as we would love to only talk to the people who just get it and be like, yes, thank you for getting it, thanks for understanding, and go with it, we're going to remove those people. Have a communication ready for the people who are on the other side of the spectrum, the ones who just don't quite understand why we're implementing this charge. And when we're delivering the message to our patients and to our team members, and we're creating the conversation around it, we want to deliver it in a way that is received by the majority. And that involves them as well, because people are not going to always, communicate with us about the costs and understand that the cost of things have gone up, the cost of operations have gone up. We're losing production. That typically is not going to...
Not well received.
Yeah,
It's not usually the well received conversation, though it's very much so a reality of a business, and we are very much so aware of this. That's not usually the conversation that needs to be had.
What we want to focus more on is the safety behind it, the other side of the spectrum, because this is also the truth. So while the cost of things have gone up, the safety is also a huge concern. We could go ahead and we could have never gotten the PPE. We could have never added any extra time in there. But why did we do it? We didn't do it so that we would lose production. We did it so that we would ensure the safety of our team members and our patients. And that's why the message can be the same for both of our team members and our patients, and having the conversation around it. So we have decided as a team, if we're talking to our team members, we've decided that we're going to be implementing a PPE charge. And the reason why we're doing this is because I want to ensure the safety of not only you, but our patients as well. And what we have done is we have all the appropriate PPE. Whether you guys have added more than that into your practice, then you can go ahead and list those things at this time. Air purification, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Whatever you have, list it out. Let them know what you have taken as extra precautions. And on top of it, we've added extra time to our appointments to ensure that the rooms are properly vented out, to ensure that you are able to clean the rooms appropriately, to ensure that you are also comfortable and not feeling rushed during this time of uncertainty. That's the conversation that we're going to have with our team members. We're talking about the safety and the time in a way that is not related to production. And like Chastity said, that's when you're then going to ask for feedback. How do you guys feel about this? Does this seem reasonable? Is this doable? What barriers do you see if we were to implement this? And that's where you're going to run into the conversation and really get a lot of feedback from people and welcome it. Ask them for it, because you need to have it, because they need to be able to deliver it in a way that makes sense. And so if we can tell them that the reason that we're doing this is all about the patient safety, it's hard for us to not want to do something for our patient safety. And yes, there's a fee associated with it, but that is the cost of business. And we want to make sure that we're delivering quality care for our patients. And with that quality care during this time of the pandemic, we do have a fee associated with it. And so practices can decide. Some are doing it a one-time fee. Some are doing it, every other visit. Whatever you decide within your practice, again, be able to justify the value behind it. I think it's really easy to digest and say it's a one-time fee during the time of the pandemic. If you also give them a time frame, that's really helpful. I know it's hard to predict what the future is going to look like. So if you can say it's just during the time of the pandemic, that helps people digest it. Because if I have no, known end to something, it's a little bit more scary, a little bit harder for me to wrap my head around it. So try to give them a time frame to wrap their head around it.
Once you've had this conversation with your team and you've been able to get their feedback, and you know that they're confident and comfortable being able to deliver this new message to your patients, now it's time to have the conversation with your patients. And the conversation is going to be very similar. There might be some small tweaks that you've made based on what it is that you're doing specifically in your practice that you're going to communicate to your patients. But overall, it's going to be able to be providing that assurance of what you've done to ensure that quality of care remains the same, though the delivery may have changed, and as well to let them know what other infection control processes are happening, what other changes to the appointment lengths may be happening. And really letting them know that it's for their safety and that it's only during this time if that's what you're electing to do for the kind of duration of how long this fee would be associated.
Now, if you were my patient, I'd be calling you up on the phone because, again, remember, we're telling them in advance. We're not waiting for them to come in.
Not waiting for them to question a bill to say, hey, I got this PPE charge.
Yeah, what is this? they would know in advance. So whether that's during
Mhm.
confirmation calls, on the website, whatever you decide to do for posting information like this, we want to have delivered it in advance to our patients.
Mhm.
So if I'm going to have a, in-person conversation or phone call conversation with Chastity, it would look something like, Chastity, I just wanted to make you aware that we do have a $20 pandemic fee or PPE fee, whatever you would like to call it, during the time of the COVID-19 pandemic. It's a one-time charge, and the reason that we have this is to help ensure your safety. We've taken multiple different protocols and precautions to get ready for preparation for you coming into the practice. We're spending extra time ensuring that the rooms are properly ventilated out, that you are safe, that there are not multiple people in the building for you, and we're going to make sure that you have a great experience and that the quality of care is still available for you. That's it. We're just letting them know that the safety reasons why we're doing it, what the fee is, and that they're still going to receive the quality of care. Again, just like with our team members, try to give a time frame. So if you can say that this is a pandemic code, I don't know if you're planning to forever charge this or not. And if you are, just be ready for that conversation as well. But the majority of us, I think, are considering this to be temporary. While the cost of PPE costs is going up, while our appointment times are changing.
Mhm.
And if that never goes away, well, that PPE charge might not ever go away too. But if you can, be able to verbalize it, that's going to really help our patients and our team members digest the information.
Have you been implementing a PPE charge in your practice? How have these conversations been going? What barriers have you been running into? Share with us in the comments. We would love to get your feedback and be able to share this information with other practices so then they're able to approach these barriers during this time as well. Don't forget to like this video and make sure to subscribe to the Dental MVP.